Customers mysteriously falling ill, a dramatic jump in just 24 hours, more than doubling after eating at a Chipotle in Boston.
You walk into your favorite restaurant. The lighting is soft. The menu looks familiar. The waiter smiles like everything is normal. But what if it's not? What if the meat sizzling in that kitchen isn't what you think it is? What if it's been sitting, stewing, sweating in the shadows? Not just for hours, but for days. Most of us assume when we order steak or grilled chicken or a burger, it's fresh, handled with care, cooked to perfection. We assume there's someone behind the scenes making sure our food is safe. But that assumption could be your biggest mistake, because behind the polished menus and carefully curated playlists are kitchens cutting corners, fridges running too warm, and meats left out for just long enough to make you sick. Restaurants don't advertise that. They don't tell you when their delivery was late, when the walk-in freezer failed, or when someone forgot to rotate the trays of beef slowly going gray in the back. They certainly don't tell you when that burger on your plate was microwaved for the third time today. What if I told you some of the most popular restaurants in the country, the ones you've probably eaten at this month, have been cited over and over for unsafe meat storage? What if I told you your last medium rare steak might have been kept at temperatures bacteria love? What if I told you your dinner almost made someone else sick? This isn't about scare tactics. It's about pulling back the curtain, about showing you what the meat industry, the restaurant chains, and the smiling server won't. Because once you know what's happening behind those kitchen doors, once you see it, you can't unsee it. This isn't about food. It's about trust. It's about safety. It's about what you feed your body and what that food has been through before it gets to your plate. So before you order that next burger or dig into that sizzling platter of steak tips, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, do you really know what you're eating? Let's find out. It's easy to blame the meat itself. We hear it all the time. Red meat is dangerous. Processed meat is toxic. Chicken is full of hormones. But what if the real danger isn't in what you're eating? It's in where it's being served. Because not all meat is created equal. And more importantly, not all meat is treated the same once it enters a restaurant's kitchen. Behind the swinging doors, past the smiling host and the polished booths, is a world you weren't meant to see. A world of dim back rooms, rusty storage racks, refrigerators that hum just a little too warm, and prep counters that haven't been sanitized since the morning rush. Here's what most people don't realize. Meat isn't dangerous because it's meat. It becomes dangerous when it's left in a lukewarm tray for 2 hours, when it's thawed on a counter instead of in a fridge, when it's pre-cooked, left to sit, then rushed back onto the grill to save time during the dinner wave. These aren't just one-off mistakes. They're routines, shortcuts, habits baked into the structure of understaffed kitchens and overloaded line cooks. The problem? You can't taste temperature violations. You can't smell cross-contamination. You won't know that steak was sitting on a prep tray beside raw chicken until your stomach starts to turn hours later. What you see is the plate, the sauce, the garnish. What you don't see is how long that meat has been traveling, how long it's been stored, how long it's been sitting, sweating, aging, waiting for you to order it. And in restaurants where every second counts, where fast service is rewarded more than safe service, your meal might come out on time, but it might not come out clean. It's not the cut of meat that's the problem, it's the care or lack of it that comes after. Because in the hands of the wrong kitchen, even the highest quality meat can turn into a bacterial landmine. This story isn't about being vegan or fearing food. It's about knowing what happens in the places you trust, and what's hiding behind the kitchen door might just be the most dangerous ingredient of all. Applebee's wants you to feel comfortable. The lights are warm, the menus are bright, the prices seem fair. It's the kind of place you go when you're hungry and don't want to think too hard. But maybe that's the problem. Because behind those booths, beyond the bar, past the smiles and sizzling skillets, is a kitchen built on shortcuts. Let's start with the meat. Most of what ends up on your plate at Applebee's, it didn't just come off the grill, it came out of a plastic bag, pre-cooked, vacuum sealed, sometimes frozen solid, and then it's microwaved. That grilled chicken on your salad? It might have been heated in a microwave, then tossed on the grill for a few stripes, just enough to make it look fresh. But inside, it might still be cold, or worse, half-thawed. Former employees have spoken out. They've called the prep area a meat graveyard. Piles of vacuum-sealed bags, some expired, some not, rotating in and out of walk-ins with no real tracking system. And when things get busy, they cut corners. Meat that should be thrown out gets reused. Frozen burgers meant for the microwave get tossed on the grill like fresh patties. And steaks? Sometimes they're pre-cooked during slow hours, left out too long, then zapped and served during the rush. There's a phrase staff whisper behind the line. Microwave to medium rare. A joke, sure. But when you're chewing through a lukewarm center that's still icy in spots, it stops being funny. Then there's the issue of rotation. At Applebee's, first in, first out doesn't always apply. In the rush to get through service, older meat often gets pushed to the back. Sometimes it never comes out. Sometimes it comes out days later, onto your plate. One former line cook described watching a steak still in its packaging go from freezer to microwave to grill to plate in under 5 minutes. It hadn't defrosted, it hadn't rested, it hadn't been cooked to temperature, but it had been served. And when customers complain, they're offered a free dessert, a gift card, an apology. But the system never changes, because the goal isn't safety, it's speed, consistency, profit. And in that equation, your health is an afterthought. You might come in for comfort food, but what you're really getting is a gamble, and that gamble might cost more than your 2 for $20. At Outback Steakhouse, the show is part of the meal. Big plates, bold flavors, sizzling steaks that hit your table like a performance. You hear it before you see it, the hiss of grilled meat, the clink of cutlery, the laughter over bloomin' onions. But behind that noise, there's a quieter story, one that doesn't make it to the menu. Because the real heat, it's happening in the kitchen, and it's not coming from the grill. Health inspections from multiple states tell a different tale of meat stored above ready-to-eat food, of juices leaking onto lettuce, of raw steaks left uncovered in walk-in coolers that weren't even holding safe temperatures. At some locations, meat meant for the grill was stored between 45 and 55 degrees. That's not cold enough to be safe, and just warm enough for bacteria to thrive. Experts call it the danger zone. Outback, they've been caught leaving meat there for hours. And then there's the cross-contamination. Line cooks rushing through prep, grabbing raw beef with bare hands, then flipping burgers without changing gloves. Tongs used on raw steak are sometimes used again, on vegetables, on cooked sides. On your plate, the pace is fast, the training is rushed, and when a mistake happens, it's often brushed off, covered up, or ignored. One former server recalled seeing partially cooked meat returned to the kitchen, only to be tossed back on the grill and reserved to a new customer. No label, no tracking, no accountability. At first glance, it all looks clean. Open kitchens, branded aprons, grilled perfection. But cleanliness is not the same as safety, and flashy doesn't mean food safe. Customers have reported feeling sick after their meals, nausea, cramps, even hospital visits. But most write it off as a fluke, a bad reaction, something they ate before dinner. The truth is harder to digest, because it's not just about one bad steak. It's about a system that lets unsafe practices slide, because it's cheaper, faster, easier. And in that system, your plate might look perfect, but your gut, it could pay the price. At Outback, the steak might sizzle, but the real fire is burning behind the scenes. TGI Fridays sells you a vibe. Loud music, neon lights, endless apps. It's the kind of place that feels fun, familiar, a celebration in every booth. But beneath the energy, behind the flair, the kitchen tells a much quieter, much darker story. Because the burgers you're biting into, they might not be as fresh as you think. Many TGI Fridays locations rely on pre-cooked patties, frozen, mass-produced, shipped in bulk, then thawed, grilled again, and sent to your table like it just came off the flame. But reheating meat isn't just a culinary shortcut, it's a safety gamble. When meat is cooked, cooled, frozen, thawed, and reheated, every stage becomes a risk. If the process isn't precise, if the temperature isn't monitored, bacteria doesn't just survive, it multiplies. And then there's the rotation problem. Expired meat doesn't always get tossed. Not when there's a busy dinner rush, not when food costs are high, not when managers are told to cut waste at any cost. Former employees describe walk-in coolers with mystery bags of thawing meat, no dates, no labels, no system. Just piles of beef, chicken, pork, stacked and sweating. Whatever gets grabbed gets grilled, even if it was supposed to be thrown out days ago. Meat is thawed on counters, left exposed to air, to cross-contamination, to everything that doesn't belong near food. And when things go wrong, when a tray of meat smells off, looks gray, or feels slimy, some cooks are told to just grill it longer, heat it until the edge is crisp, hide the problem under seasoning. One former kitchen worker said they were taught to mask spoiled meat with sauces, not to waste it. Too expensive to toss, the manager told them. So it was served again and again. Customers never know. They just assume the burger's a little dry, that the chicken is oddly chewy, that the steak feels off. But it's not just taste. It's time. It's storage. It's neglect. And sometimes it's the thing that sends someone home sick. Because when food safety is treated like an inconvenience, you're not just gambling with flavor, you're gambling with your health. And at TGI Fridays, the fun atmosphere might distract you from the truth, but it won't protect you from what's really on your plate. At Chili's, everything feels casual. It's the kind of place you go for comfort food and bottomless chips. You don't expect fine dining, just something hot, something fast, something easy. But what you don't expect is what you can't see. Because behind the sizzling fajitas and signature ribs is a kitchen fighting battles you'll never hear about. Deliveries arrive late, trucks break down, orders get delayed, and when that meat finally shows up hours behind schedule, it's already starting to sweat. And yet, it's still brought inside, still unpacked, still stored in coolers that were never meant to recover from a midday heat wave. The thermometer might say 39, but inside those boxes, the meat is rising, slowly, dangerously. And instead of discarding it, instead of calling the supplier, many locations follow a simpler method, a shortcut, dressed up as protocol. They smell it. If it doesn't stink, it's fine. If it still looks red, it's good enough. And if it's borderline, well, cook it longer, add more seasoning, cut off the bad part, and hope no one notices. Former employees from multiple Chili's kitchens have told the same story. Walk-ins with pooling blood beneath the meat racks, puddles of pink and brown, slowly creeping toward the produce bins. Shelves rusted, no longer sealed, no longer safe. Plastic wrap torn, labels smeared, packages stacked so tightly, the airflow disappears. It's not just unsanitary, it's a perfect breeding ground. And then there's the practice of mixing old with new. Fresh chicken tossed into the same pan as last night's batch. Steaks rotated by sight, not by date. The idea of first in, first out becomes whatever's closest to the front. Even during inspections, some locations clean just enough to pass. Not to be safe, just to survive the checklist. Meanwhile, customers sit in booths just a few feet away, thinking their sizzling platter means quality, that the smoke and sound must equal safety. But in that back kitchen, where speed is king and standards bend under pressure, your steak might have been delivered warm, stored wrong, and judged by smell. Not science, not safety, just instinct. And that's the kind of instinct that could turn a fun night out into something far more dangerous. Panera Bread wants to feel safe, wholesome, warm, clean. You walk in and the walls are lined with grainy textures and cozy fonts. The word clean is everywhere. clean food, clean ingredients, clean eating. But if you step behind the counter, if you open the stainless steel drawers and lift the warming pans, the story starts to shift. Because Panera may sell itself as healthy and mindful, but their kitchens tell a different story. And the meat? It's far from fresh. Most of the protein at Panera doesn't come raw. It comes pre-cooked, vacuum-sealed, frozen. It's heated in boiling bags, warmed up in trays, held for hours and hours, waiting for your order to hit the screen. That grilled chicken on your Caesar salad? It might have been prepped before sunrise, sitting in a warming bin long past the 2-hour food safety window. Edges dry, center lukewarm, texture soft, spongy, suspicious. Workers have reported meats held too long, reheated twice, and still served, because during the lunch rush, there's no time to waste. Panera's system isn't built for freshness. It's built for speed. Assembly line efficiency, where every sandwich is just another puzzle piece. And in that race to stay fast, standards fall behind. Health inspections across multiple states have found issues with hot holding temperatures. Meat stored below the minimum safe threshold. Steak strips pulled from coolers and slapped onto paninis without a second thought. Chicken tossed onto salads while still cold in the middle. One former employee described it plainly: "If it doesn't look spoiled, we serve it, even if it feels off." Another location was caught using the same tongs for raw bacon and cooked chicken. Cross-contamination with no alarms, just routine. Customers trust the brand, trust the label, trust the idea of a cleaner, better option. But clean branding isn't clean cooking, and a soft baguette doesn't erase a cold slab of underheated steak. This isn't fast food, they say. It's real food. But when you peel back the label, when you lift the lid, what you see is just another chain reheating meat and hoping you won't ask questions. Because at Panera Bread, the illusion is warm, but the meat might not be. The Cheesecake Factory is all about excess. The menu reads like a novel. The portions are towering, and the plating always dramatic. Golden lighting, marble floors, oversized booths. Everything feels polished, perfect, premium. But perfection can be deceiving, because behind that glossy menu and the illusion of upscale dining is a kitchen moving faster than you can imagine. Hundreds of plates, dozens of proteins. Beef, chicken, pork, seafood, all ordered, all expected to arrive looking picture perfect. But in a kitchen that busy, where aesthetics matter more than safety, the cracks start to show. Former employees describe the chaos. A refrigerator packed beyond capacity, unlabeled meat trays shoved wherever they fit, chicken stored above produce, fish next to thawing ground beef, juices mixing, bins overflowing. It's not uncommon, it's not rare, it's routine. The volume at Cheesecake Factory is staggering. Some locations serve thousands of meals in a single day. And to meet demand, corners are cut quietly and often. Pre-cooked meats are a staple. Large batches prepared during slow hours, then held in warming drawers for hours. Sometimes too long. Sometimes past the point of safe consumption. But as long as the plate looks good, it goes out. Kitchen staff are trained to prioritize presentation. That steak, brush it with butter. That dry chicken, add extra sauce. Make it shine. Make it pop. Even if it was reheated. Even if it never reached safe internal temperatures. One whistleblower recalled finding raw chicken next to cooked pasta. Another said the line often shared tongs between meats and vegetables. Cross-contamination wasn't just possible, it was constant. And when the rush hits, when 20 orders flash on the screen at once, the mission becomes simple. Move fast, make it look good, and don't fall behind. But when food safety is buried beneath the pressure of performance, it's not just flavor that suffers, it's your health. Inspections have flagged dozens of Cheesecake Factory kitchens for improper food storage, unsafe holding temperatures, and poor sanitation. But the violations rarely make headlines. Because when a restaurant looks expensive, we assume it must be safe. But chandeliers don't kill bacteria. And no amount of garnish can fix a steak that sat in a broken cooler overnight. At Cheesecake Factory, the presentation is flawless, but the truth might leave a bad taste. You've seen the logos, you've walked through the doors, you've scanned the menus without a second thought. But once you've looked behind the kitchen walls, you start to notice something chilling, a pattern, not just a mistake, not just a bad day, a system. Across all of these chains, the story repeats. It doesn't matter if it's steak, chicken, burgers, or ribs. It doesn't matter if it's casual dining or fast casual. The deeper you look, the more familiar it starts to feel. The same practices, the same shortcuts, the same risks. Meat cooked hours before your order and left in warming trays. Freezers overloaded with plastic bags of pre-cooked proteins. Thermometers ignored, labels missing. Rotations skipped. Why? Because speed always wins. When the dinner rush hits, safety slows things down. And slowing down costs money. So instead of temperature checks, there are guesses. Instead of fresh prep, there's microwave magic. Instead of food safety, there's food appearance. It looks hot. It looks good. Send it out. The pressure is relentless. Serve more. Move faster. Keep the line moving. Employees are undertrained. Thrown onto the grill after one shift. Learning food safety from whoever's standing next to them. Not a manager, not a manual, just momentum. And customers trust. They trust the kitchen. They trust the brand. They trust the illusion that because it's served with a smile, it must be safe. But that trust is being exploited because the average person won't ask what temperature their chicken was held at. They won't question how long that steak sat out. They won't know that their burger was cooked 3 hours ago and reheated just for them. The truth is, these chains are counting on that. They're counting on the fact that you won't see the walk-in, that you won't smell the sour trays, that you won't know what a 2-day-old chicken breast looks like once it's been covered in sauce. They're counting on silence, on ignorance, on habit, and that's what makes this pattern so dangerous. Not just that it's happening, but that it's happening everywhere. It sounds harmless, pre-cooked, reheated, safe, right? But this is where the danger hides. Not in the raw, but in the recycled. Because pre-cooked meat gives the illusion of control. It looks neat, efficient, sterile. But once that seal is broken, once that meat is exposed to air, to heat, to hands, the clock starts ticking. And reheating doesn't rewind it. Most people assume heating something twice makes it safer. But the truth is, every time meat is cooled and reheated, it enters the danger zone again. That critical range between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, where bacteria don't just survive, they multiply. Restaurants call it batch cooking. But what it really is rolling the dice. A chicken breast cooked at 10 a.m., sliced, set in a warming tray, reheated for lunch, reheated again for dinner. Not thrown out, not checked, just recycled. And if that warming tray dips below the safety threshold, even for a little while, you've got more than just a dry sandwich. You've got a petri dish. Reheating can't always kill what's already grown, especially if the center doesn't reach the right temperature, especially when the outside is hot, but the inside is still cold. From the outside, it looks ready, it smells right. But inside, the bacteria are thriving. And the more times that meat is heated, cooled, and heated again, the worse the texture becomes. The more likely it is to be undercooked in the center. The more dangerous it becomes to eat. And most customers never know. They bite into something rubbery, a little sour, a little off. They finish anyway. They assume it's just bad seasoning, a fluke. But it's not. It's policy, it's process. It's happening in kitchens all across the country because it's cheaper, because it's faster, because no one's stopping it. Pre-cooked and reheated meat isn't a time saver. It's a time bomb. And the next time you bite into that grilled chicken, you might be biting into something that's been cooked again and again and again until safety is no longer part of the recipe. Health inspectors don't walk into restaurants looking for trouble. They walk in with a clipboard, a thermometer, and a checklist. They're not there to make headlines. They're there to make sure your dinner doesn't send you to the hospital. But what they find should make you pause. In a Florida inspection report, one location was cited for raw chicken stored above open containers of lettuce. The juices had already dripped. It wasn't a potential risk. It was an active one. Another inspector in Texas described a walk-in cooler where blood from thawing beef had pooled under racks and was leaking toward produce bins. The staff said they'd clean it later. They never did. In a bustling Cheesecake factory kitchen, health officials noted inadequate reheating of pre-cooked meats. Temperatures were consistently below the safe minimum of 165 degrees. And yet those meals were still served, plated, garnished, and sent to unsuspecting guests. One TGI Fridays in New York failed an inspection after inspectors found meat thawing in standing water in a mop sink. Not a prep sink. Not a sanitized container. Then there's what you can't see on a report: the smell, the heat radiating from broken coolers, the sound of flies buzzing near trays of cooked pork left uncovered. Inspectors write what they can, but the reality? It's often worse than the page can hold. At one Chili's location, the inspector noted multiple instances of improper hand washing between handling raw meat and ready-to-eat items. Cross-contamination in real time. Observed. Ignored. In dozens of locations across multiple chains, inspectors documented the same issues. Expired meat not discarded. Cold holding units that weren't cold. Refrigerators missing thermometers altogether. One of the most disturbing quotes came from a Panera bread kitchen inspection. Cooked chicken held in a hot well at 110 degrees Fahrenheit for more than 3 hours. Employees stated, "That's how we always do it." That's how we always do it, not a mistake, not a glitch, a method. And that's the real horror behind the inspection reports. They don't just catch accidents. They reveal habits, patterns of neglect, procedures that prioritize speed, volume, and appearance, while food safety becomes an afterthought. You might think inspections catch everything. They don't. Because for every restaurant that fails, there are dozens that pass, but only just. And what's hiding behind that passing grade might still end up on your plate. They were there, behind the counter, behind the grill, in the kitchens where your food is made, reheated, and plated. And now they're speaking up. Whistleblowers from chain restaurants across the country, line cooks, prep staff, servers, not out for revenge, not looking for attention, just tired of seeing what happens when no one's watching. One former employee from a busy Applebee's in Ohio said, "We used to call it the mystery drawer. Meat with no date stickers, sometimes slimy, but we were told to just grill it." In Florida, a Chili's line cook described a night he'll never forget. A customer sent back a chicken breast, still raw in the center. The manager pulled it off the plate, threw it back on the grill, and handed it to another server. "Don't waste it," he said, "and that's still good." Another worker from Panera Bread admitted the chicken in his location was held in warming trays for nearly 4 hours, past safe limits. It would dry out, get tough. But if it looked okay, they told us to serve it. At TGI Fridays, a former kitchen manager revealed a common practice during busy nights: pre-cooked burgers, line them up, and microwave them during peak hours. One time, we had over 50 patties pre-cooked by 5 p.m. Some were still being used at 10. And then there's the Cheesecake factory employee who said she once found chicken labeled for discard being served. They scraped off the old date sticker, put on a new one, and tossed it back in the line. It made me sick just watching. The stories aren't rare. They're not even surprising to those who've worked behind those swinging kitchen doors. What's shocking is how normal it's become. These whistleblowers risked their jobs. Some quit in frustration. Others were pushed out for asking too many questions. But the pattern stays the same. Unsafe meat. Managers who look the other way. A system built not on food safety, but on speed, volume, and the hope that customers won't notice. They're not just voices in the dark. They are warnings from people who know too much and watch too many plates go out when they should have gone straight into the trash. And now they're telling you before your plate is the next mistake. It's easy to be fooled. The lighting is soft. The silverware shines. The floor smells faintly of lemon-scented cleaner. The booth is cushioned, the napkins folded just right. And in that moment, you feel safe. But safety isn't about what you can see. It's about what you can't. Because cleanliness is not a vibe. It's not a mood. It's not a carefully chosen playlist or a spotless menu. It's discipline. And discipline doesn't always come with dim lighting and fancy decor. In fact, sometimes the fancier the restaurant feels, the more blind we become to what's really happening. That sleek, open kitchen, it only shows you the front line, not the walk-in cooler in the back, not the blood pooling beneath the racks, not the trays stacked with thawing meat from yesterday's delivery. That smiling server, they don't know the chicken they just served was held at 110 degrees all afternoon. They just know it looked grilled and smelled fine, because the illusion of clean is powerful. It wraps itself in chandeliers and branded aprons, in chalkboard signs that say fresh daily, in artisanal sauces and rustic wooden menus. But behind the curtain, cleanliness means something else. It means washing your hands after every prep. It means checking the thermometer twice. It means tossing the chicken that's been sitting a little too long, even if it looks okay, even if it costs money. That's real safety, and it's invisible, which is exactly why it's so easy to fake. Restaurants spend thousands on design, but almost nothing on food safety training. They'll hire a branding firm to refresh their logo before they'll replace a broken cooler. And we reward them for it. We post photos of our plates. We leave 5-star reviews. We say, it felt so clean in there. But clean is not about how it feels. It's about what's behind the walls, beneath the surface, inside the fridge. So next time you sit down in that beautiful booth, ask yourself, are you being served food or a performance? Because in the world of chain restaurants, sometimes the cleanest places hide the dirtiest secrets. You don't need to be a chef to protect yourself. You don't need a thermometer in your pocket or a health inspector's badge on your chest. What you need is awareness. Because once you know what to look for, once you understand how the game is played, you can make smarter choices, one plate at a time. It starts with the simplest tool you have, your voice. Ask questions. If you're ordering chicken, ask how it's cooked. Ask if it's grilled fresh or pre-cooked. If it's been sitting in a warming tray for 2 hours, your server might hesitate. That hesitation tells you everything. Ask if the steak is made to order. Ask how long the burgers sit prepped before they hit the grill. Ask what kind of thermometer they use in the kitchen. And if the answers are vague, or worse, defensive, trust your instinct. You can also read the menu with sharper eyes. If the description says grilled but not fresh, if it says oven roasted but not made to order, that might be your first clue that the meat was cooked yesterday and just reheated today. Pay attention to temperature. If your food arrives cold in the center or barely warm, send it back. Not just because it's unpleasant, but because it could be unsafe. Look at the meat itself. Does it have a slimy texture, a sour smell, an odd chewiness like it's been microwaved? These are red flags, and sometimes the safest choice is the simplest one. Salads without meat, vegetarian options made fresh. Soups served piping hot, not lukewarm. Sides cooked to order, potatoes, vegetables, even plain rice. And if the restaurant seems rushed, understaffed, or chaotic, don't gamble. Walk out. Your gut will thank you later. Because food poisoning doesn't always come with drama. Sometimes it's just a long, uncomfortable night, or a week off work, or worse. So ask questions, look twice, and never be afraid to say no. Your safety isn't inconvenient. It's essential. And once you start choosing with your eyes open, you'll never eat the same way again. The menu tells you what you're ordering, but it doesn't tell you what came before. It doesn't list how long that chicken sat in a warming tray, or how many hands touched that steak before it hit the grill. It doesn't mention the broken fridge, the skipped temperature check, the silent shortcut taken at 7:42 p.m. during a dinner rush that never slowed down. The menu shows you what's for sale, but it hides what's at stake. Because the biggest danger in these restaurants isn't what's on the plate. It's what never made it to print. The fine print that doesn't exist. You don't see the training manual that was never read. The shipment that arrived late and was still used. The meat that looked mostly fine and was served anyway. And most of all, you don't see the assumptions. The belief that you'll never ask questions, that you'll never look twice, that if it smells okay and looks decent, you'll take the first bite. And maybe you will, but maybe that bite was a gamble. Because that chicken breast could have been cooked this morning or yesterday or twice. That burger could have been frozen, thawed, microwaved, and grilled, and you'd never know. Because the illusion is strong, the branding is polished, the lighting makes you feel safe. But bacteria doesn't care about ambiance. Foodborne illness doesn't pause for presentation, and danger doesn't ask for your permission. You came for dinner, but what you got was a risk wrapped in a garnish, and most people never find out. Not until the stomach cramps hit. Not until the night gets longer. Not until it's too late to wonder where the danger really started. It started with trust. Trust in the system. Trust in the name above the door. But now you know better. Now you've seen behind the scenes, and now you get to choose. Not just what you eat, but where. Because the truth is, the most dangerous thing on your plate might be the one thing they never put in writing. What they don't serve you is the truth. And sometimes that's what makes you sick. If this video made you pause before your next bite, don't keep that feeling to yourself, because silence protects the system. But your voice, it can break it. Drop a comment below. Tell us, have you ever gotten sick from restaurant food? Have you ever trusted a meal that betrayed your body? We want your story, because your story becomes someone else's warning. Hit that like button, not for the algorithm, but for every person who thinks a pretty plate means a safe one. Share this video with someone you care about, someone who eats out without knowing what's behind the kitchen door, someone who deserves better. And if you're ready to uncover what else they've been hiding, if you're ready to see what's not on the menu, then hit that subscribe button now. We are Evil Food Secrets, and we're not here to sugarcoat it. They control the menu, they control the brands, they control the illusion, but they don't control you, not anymore. Turn on notifications, join the rebellion, expose the truth, one ingredient at a time, one restaurant at a time, one lie at a time. We'll see you in the next one. Stay awake, stay hungry, and question everything.